American newspapers were once flooded with news about the daughter of a major businessman who was kidnapped by a perpetrator demanding ransom. The girl was placed in a coffin and provided with a flashlight, an air tube, some food, and water to survive for several days until her family paid the ransom for her release. The incident occurred in 1968 and involved 20-year-old Barbara Jane Mackle, the daughter of American construction tycoon Robert Mackle. Mr. Mackle had many connections and was acquainted with the 37th President of the United States, Richard Nixon. Barbara lived a life of luxury but dressed modestly and behaved politely. She was a student of Emory University in the state of Georgia. On New Year's Eve, the Hong Kong flu had spread to the university. This pandemic claimed the lives of over 1 million people. Barbara came down with a fever and sore throat. Her mother, Miss Jane Mackle, left the family estate in Florida and came to the university dormitory to take her daughter to a hotel called the Roadway Inn, located a few miles from campus, to care for her. On the night of December 17th, 1968, a man wearing a police hat and a woman wearing a black mask knocked on the door of the room. The man claimed that Barbara's close friend, Stuart Woodward, had been in an accident and had asked them to bring her to the hospital. He even stated the color, brand, license plate number, and Stuart's car. Once allowed inside, the man immediately pulled a gun on the mother and daughter. Miss Jane was drugged, and Barbara was taken away in a car. Early in the morning, Miss Jane woke up and asked a motel employee to call the police. She recounted the kidnapping that had occurred during the night and tearfully pleaded for help. Shortly afterward, Barbara's boyfriend, Stuart Woodward, whom the kidnappers had falsely claimed was in an accident, arrived and tried to support Barbara's mother. Mr. Mackle was informed of his daughter's disappearance and immediately flew from Miami to the scene. He also called John Edgar Hoover, who was then the director of the FBI. The investigation involved the FBI and some of the best investigators available. FBI agents believed that ransom was the motive behind the kidnapping, and this was soon confirmed. That morning, a strange voice called the Mackle family to talk about Barbara's abduction and mentioned that something had been buried on the Mackle property. Since the family was away, a friend of theirs answered the call. Police later discovered a cup that had a ransom note written on it. The kidnapper said that Barbara was underground and had been provided with water and air to survive for 5 days. They demanded that Mr. Mackle pay $500,000 in exchange for his daughter's life and required him to agree to the deal by replacing a statement in the Miami Herald. On December 18th, the Mackle family kept their promise. By the early morning of December 19th, the kidnappers called again, instructing Mr. Mackle to drive alone and drop off the ransom money at the location about 10 kilometers from the house. Mr. Mackle went to the site, left the suitcase full of cash, and departed. It seemed that everything had gone according to plan, but it didn't. The information about the ransom drop had been leaked to the police. The FBI, without coordinating with the local police, attempted to catch the kidnapper at the drop site. The mastermind escaped, along with his female accomplice, who had been waiting in the car. They fled and abandoned the vehicle. This incident terrified Barbara's parents, as they feared the criminals might believe Mr. Mackle had tipped off the police. They now had to regain the kidnapper's trust in order to save their daughter. The abandoned Volvo became a fatal mistake for the criminals. Inside the car were Ruth Esmond Scheiser's passport, a photo of Barbara holding a sign that read, Kidnapped, a collection of intimate photos of Ruth Shire and Garrett Christ, the man who resembled the fake police officer who had abducted Barbara, as well as a check and other documents that revealed the identity of the perpetrators. The FBI began gathering information on the kidnappers. By that time, 23-year-old Gary Christ already had a lengthy criminal record, multiple car theft, numerous burglaries, both large and small, and even an escape from prison. He had personally devised a plan to kidnap a wealthy heiress in order to demand a ransom. In 1968, Christ moved his wife and children to Florida and began working at the Miami Marine Research Institute. There, he met 26-year-old student Ruth Shear. They became lovers, and Christ immediately left his wife and children. The couple began living together. Christ confided in Ruth his secret, that he was an escaped convict, and revealed his plan to kidnap someone. Ruth willingly became his loyal accomplice. After identifying a suitable victim, Barbara, Christ decided not to kill her, fearing the possibility of facing the death penalty. Instead, he claimed to keep her confined somewhere until the ransom was paid. He came up with the idea of placing the girl in a coffin and burying her underground. The couple assembled wooden boards into a coffin measuring 2 meters by 90 centimeters. The inside was lined with lightweight fiberglass insulation and equipped with a fan and a flashlight. To keep the victim alive, they placed water and sandwiches inside the box and added 2 flexible plastic tubes that extended above the ground, providing air. After completing the coffin, they transported it from Florida to Atlanta, buried it in the woods, and on February 17th, they placed Barbara inside. Mr. Mackle made a second attempt to pay the ransom. After the first attempt was thwarted by police intervention, Robert Mackle needed to regain the kidnapper's trust in order to deliver the ransom. After discussing the situation with FBI agents, he decided to issue an official statement in the newspaper, declaring that he had no involvement in the actions of the Miami police and asking for another chance. These words appeared across newspapers, televisions, and radio broadcasts. On the evening of December 19th, at his residence, Mackle received a phone call from the kidnapper with new instructions for the ransom drop, this time in the suburbs of the city. This time, the FBI informed the police in advance to ensure they would not interfere in any way. That very night, the ransom handover was successfully carried out. Robert Mackle paid the full $500,000 in $20 bills as demanded by the kidnappers. The following day, an anonymous phone call came to the FBI. A man claimed to know the location where Barbara Mackle was hidden, stating that she had been buried alive in the woods, 38 kilometers from the site of her abduction. Over 100 FBI agents were dispatched to the scene and spread out across the area to search for the girl. They did not inform Barbara's parents to prevent causing them further distress. After several hours of searching through the forest, one of the agents discovered a plastic tube protruding from the ground. The team hurriedly began digging and soon uncovered a wooden coffin. They continued digging while calling out Barbara's name, but received no response until they heard a faint knock. When they opened the coffin, they found Barbara, exhausted and pale, but still smiling. She was immediately carried to a vehicle. Subsequently, FBI Director Hoover personally called Mr. Mackle to inform him that his daughter had been found and was still alive. Kirst and Ruth Shear decided to part ways. Kirst would buy a boat to travel to Mexico, while Ruth would make her way there by land. However, the kidnappers made another fatal mistake. Kirst purchased the boat using $20 bills, the same denomination that the entire nation knew had been used to pay the ransom. The boat's owner reported Kirst to the police and he was quickly arrested. His accomplice, Ruth, was also captured. The couple was placed on the FBI's list of the 10 most wanted fugitives, with Ruth being the first woman ever included on that list. Kirst was sentenced to life in prison, but after 10 years, he was granted early release. It seemed that the man truly had plans to start a new life. He earned a medical degree in an attempt to become a doctor, but as soon as his criminal past was discovered, he was denied employment. As a result, Kurst returned to a life of crime, and in 2006, he was arrested on a boat carrying drugs and illegal immigrants. In November 2010, Kurst was released, and it is unclear what happened to him afterwards. Ruth Shear was sentenced to 7 years in prison, but was also granted clemency after serving 4 years. She later returned to her homeland, Honduras, where she married and had 4 children. Before being locked inside the coffin, Barbara was instructed by Kurst on how to use all the equipment inside. When she realized she was about to be buried alive, she panicked, but was given no mercy. Trapped in the wooden box, she struggled to escape, but it was hopeless. After calming down, Barbara noticed an instruction sheet and a reassuring note. "Don't worry, you are safe. You will be home by Christmas." The kidnappers told her she could survive for at least 11 days. However, after a few hours, she was completely enveloped in darkness. Barbara was buried for 83 hours and wrote in her journal, "83 hours to dawn," that positive thoughts helped her survive, even though she occasionally thought she would die in the coffin. When she returned home, her parents organized a joyful Christmas celebration. In 1971, Barbara married Stuart Woodward and lived with him for 42 years until his death in 2013. The kidnapping of Barbara Mackle became one of the most shocking cases in the United States, not only because of the audacity and cunning of the kidnappers, but also because of the extraordinary resilience of a young woman buried alive. Barbara's miraculous surviving story was not just a triumph of will and hope, but also a testament to the determination and effective coordination between the victim's family and the investigative forces.